Hello, welcome back to Today in Bad Theology. Today we look at the theological claim that COVID vaccinations are the mark of the beast, who is Joe Biden. Now, you might hear this and say, that's ridiculous. Yes, but it's theologically ridiculous, right? It's not just enough to claim that it's ridiculous, because obviously it is. But if we're going to be religious people and say that there is a God who raises Jesus from the dead, we have to be able to counter claims like this, because the stuff we're claiming sounds a little weird also. Now, I first became aware of this claim, which is out there, that the vaccinations are the mark of the beast. I became aware of this claim through a story about something Tucker Carlson said. The story I was linked on the Today in Bad Theology Facebook page from a few weeks ago, in which Tucker Carlson claimed that the COVID vaccine was being used to weed true Christians and freedom lovers and men with high testosterone out of the army. His claim that such people would leave rather than take the COVID vaccine. But if you dig a little bit deeper into that article, you get to the part that turned me on to this, which is that Carlson claims that the U.S. Army's video explaining vaccinations is derived from the tenets of Satanism as listed on the Satanic Temple website. So that struck me as a little weird. Christians have been claiming that the military serves the purposes of Satan from the very beginning of Christianity, because in the earliest days of the church, the military was Rome's army, which was a foreign occupier, and the early church were pacifists. So yeah, sure, the army works for Satan. That's not a claim most Christians today would make. Some might. So, I mean, there's a historical precedent here, but it's certainly not where Carlson's going with this, I don't think. If you look a little deeper on this story, you find out that U.S. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene has also claimed back in March that Joe Biden's proposed COVID passport, which still has not materialized here in October, might as well be called Biden's mark of the beast, because this is straight out of the book of Revelation. Now, what are they talking about? If you dig deeper, and I did, you find that this talk of vaccines as the mark of the beast goes back at least to 2005 in the general anti-vaxxer movement, back when they were just opposing vaccinations to measles and smallpox and rubella and all sorts of other things that you shouldn't get sick with, but they've decided that you should. The idea was floated within that community that vaccines of any sort are actually used to microchip us, and that these microchips then are the mark of the beast through which the beast will control us. So that's idea has been floating around for 15, 16 years before COVID came along, and it was just a natural thing to shift into, now they're going to make you get a COVID vaccine, and they're going to mark you with the mark of the beast. So, yeah. This is bad theology. Again, though, why? Why is this bad? We're claiming that one time on a Sunday in the first century, God raised an unemployed carpenter from the dead. So we need to look first at what the heck is the mark of the beast. Now, the mark of the beast is something that shows up in the book of Revelation, one of the most popular and easily misused books in all of Scripture. The last one. Most of us skip to the end to find out what's going on. The book of Revelation is written as a ring story. A ring story, it's a way of composing stories in the ancient world, possibly because it helped people who were telling them without a script remember where they were supposed to be. The Iliad is probably the most famous example of a ring story. If you look at how the Iliad is laid out, everything builds up to a climactic scene in the middle where Zeus tells you that the story's going to go the way everyone knows it's going to go, and there's nothing anyone can do about it. And then the story goes exactly the way Zeus said it would, in mirror image of what's come before. Revelation is set up this way also. And in those kinds of stories, in ring stories, the things at the beginning and the very end interpret each other. And then the second item and the penultimate item interpret each other, and so on until you get to the very middle. And the middle of the story is what bears most of the weight. It's what explains this is what the thing's actually about. Like in the Iliad, the story is about how Achilles was given the choice of either living a very long time and nobody knowing who he was, or dying young but staying famous forever. Since we know who he is, we know what he picked. In the book of Revelation, in chapter 12, you're getting to the middle of the book. All right, this is like right before the middle, and there's no actual middle section. This is before and this is after. All right. In chapter 12 of the book of Revelation, there is a war in heaven, and there's a dragon trying to take over heaven. And Saint Michael and his angels slay the angels of the dragon and cast the dragon down to earth. And then we're told, in case you weren't aware, the dragon's name is Satan. And then Satan now is on the earth, and he's really mad because, one, he got his butt kicked by Saint Michael, and two, he knows it's only a matter of time before he's kicked off of the earth also. He comes with wrath because he knows his time is short, is the line in chapter 12. This is Revelation's way of explaining evil. Why is there evil? This is a problem every religion has to deal with, and Christianity comes at this multiple ways. Why is there evil? And Revelation's way is using this apocalyptic thinking that there's a very, very definitely a good and an evil. And in this case, the evil got thrown out of heaven, but hasn't been thrown off of the earth yet. And so the evil is here, basically throwing a cosmic hissy fit, taking out their frustrations on you and me until God gets around to sweeping them off the face of the planet. So, in chapter 13, we get what the devil starts doing. And the devil, the dragon, gets a beast lined up. The beast comes out of the sea uttering blasphemies. And so then after he's finished cussing at God, he designates another beast from the land who is going to act on his authority. And the beast on the land works for the beast from the sea, and the beast from the sea convinces everyone to worship the evil dragon, Satan. Right? And the beast, we are told, marks everyone. The beast from the land marks everyone, and those marks are on their forehead and on their hand, and no one can buy or sell without having the mark of the beast. Right? And then famously, it has a number, 666. And people have tried for ages to figure out what the heck that's about. And there are lots of theories, some of them clever, some of them probably, the best we've got, but no one is sure. And anybody who tells you they're sure is lying or is just way too confident. We don't know, right? The point is that this story explains why there is evil in our lives, in our world. It's one way that the New Testament explains it. That there is evil, there is this empire, right? The beast represents Rome under the nickname of Babylon in the book of Revelation. And Rome is the enemy. Rome are the occupiers. Rome is the empire. The big, bad empire that projects this image of invincibility and oppresses the nascent church. And the idea is that the beast, Rome, is ultimately doing the work of God's enemies. But we know that at the end of the book, the beast loses, and Jesus returns to the earth, and everyone lives happily ever after. The book is meant to promise us, yes, this is awful now. It will get better eventually, maybe not during your lifetime. So, why is it bad theology to claim that the vaccines are the mark of the beast Joe Biden. First point, is the vaccine mandate Joe Biden's mark of the beast? Sure, why not? Right? It's become a thing. Federal contractors, anybody who's using federal money, federal employees, if they want to retain their jobs, if they want to keep their contracts, if they want to be able to buy and sell with the government, they have to have the mark that they have been vaccinated. So sure, this is the mark. And yeah, Joe Biden is the president of the United States. And if anything in today's world is the empire, it's my country, the United States. If you think Joe Biden is the beast, you got to accept that your country is the empire, is the enemy. And not just when someone you don't like is the president. If Joe Biden is the beast, that means that for the last 4 years, Donald Trump was the beast. And before him, Barack Obama was the beast. And before him, George W. Bush was the beast. And before him, Bill Clinton. And before him, George H.W. Before him, Ronald Reagan, and so on. If you think that Joe Biden is the beast, then every president is. And our country is the big bad empire. So, yeah, it'd be bad theology to pin this on Joe Biden because he's just the latest in a long line of leaders of this power that dominates the world and in which we all participate if you're U.S. citizens. So yeah, it's bad theology because it doesn't acknowledge the complexity of life and the fact that if you are enjoying the benefits of living in the United States, you've got to explain how you can get away with that and be faithful to the God who claims they are going to defeat the empire. Second point, why is this bad theology? It's bad theology because it follows dispensationalism. And I've said before, dispensationalism needs to be covered, and it is going to be covered in an upcoming video. But dispensationalism really quickly claims there's a roadmap to the end times, and we know how things are going to play out. And if you know the right code, you can identify how things are happening in the world today and predict the end of the world. And so to claim that Joe Biden is the beast and the vaccine passport is the mark of the beast is to claim that you have access to God's timeline. As I said in another video, and I'll say again today, and I'll say again in the future, the Bible itself is crystal clear. No one knows, and no one's gonna until it happens, all right? Jesus even claims that God hasn't told him, and he's God. So yeah, you're not gonna figure it out. But dispensationalism thinks you can. And this is bad theology, not just in thinking that Joe Biden is the mark of the beast, but even in some attempts to say, no, obviously he's not. Pastor Greg Laurie of Harvest Christian Fellowship in Southern California has argued in favor of vaccinations. You need to get your COVID vaccine. And I agree with him. You need to get your COVID vaccine, and it's not the mark of the beast, and Joe Biden is not the beast. But his argument is that based on a very literalistic understanding of Revelation 14, he assumes in his rebuttal that everyone is eventually going to get offered to bear the mark of the beast, and it's something that they will do knowingly and that they will embrace knowingly and to their own damnation when the world ends. Which is why he says the vaccination can't be the mark of the beast, because they're forcing you to get it. I appreciate that he is in favor of getting vaccinated. Vaccination is how we're going to beat this thing, or at least suppress it to the point we can get on with something that looks like what life was like in 2019 and before. But this is still a dispensationalist way of thinking. It still assumes that the end is coming and that there is a way we can just get off the earth and ignore life. That's bad theology, because it takes us away from our work as human beings living in creation with a command from God to love one another. And that's my third point. The third point is that this theology undercuts love of neighbor in the most obvious way you can express love of neighbor in 2021. It undercuts getting your COVID vaccination, right? It's theology in the service of a movement that says vaccinations are wrong, that even slaps God's name on that and says God doesn't want you to be vaccinated. And verses of the Bible get pulled out. Oh, there's a thing in Leviticus that says life is in the blood. And yeah, Leviticus never heard of vaccinations, so he's not really a good biologist. So don't go there, right? Vaccinations are how we protect each other, right? My vaccination protects you. I just got my booster yesterday, actually. I got vaccinated, clergy qualified in Indiana, and I got it as soon as I could. And I got my second dose as soon as I could. And I got my booster as soon as I could. That is how we are protecting one another. My vaccination makes me less likely to be carrying the virus around you. My mask makes it less likely that I spread droplets to you. It's looking out for you. It's love of neighbor. And when you claim that vaccination is actually the mark of a beast who is serving Satan, it undercuts love of neighbor in the easiest, path of least resistance kind of way, right? This is like a beginner love of neighbor, right? The same way voting is beginner civic engagement, right? It's just, you haven't even gotten to you actually care about your neighbors or even your enemies. You're just doing this thing to protect them, the same way you might, alert them that their house was on fire, or not drive your car into their open door. This is just kind of basic getting along with one another. The anti-vax movement undercuts this. Love of neighbor and love of God, that's the big one. That's the one Jesus says is the biggest. It's bigger even than the things on the top 10 list. This claim that Joe Biden is the beast working for Satan and using vaccines to mark us is bad theology, ultimately, because it encourages us not to love our neighbors. It encourages us to think we're going to get off the earth eventually and don't have to care about this. And it overlooks the whole point of the book of Revelation, which is that life is hard and painful and evil is a thing. But the hope in Revelation is that God is going to win, and the evil now is Satan's hissy fit. It's going to end. Maybe not in our lifetimes, but it will. That's it for today in Bad Theology. If you like this content or things like this, please hit the like button. Don't be afraid to hit the subscribe button. I try to get one of these out each week. We're aiming to do that. If you want to drop a comment below, please do that. You can also check us out on the Today in Bad Theology Facebook page. That page, I do referee it to make sure there's no, abusive language or anything like that going on there. But you're welcome to spot us there. I'll see you next time.